Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to give you the notes here, and then you can just write. You'll look it up on the monitor, and then you can just follow my lead. So the nervous system has multiple parts. Okay, it consists of the central nervous system, and and peripheral nervous system. Okay, sorry about that. The central nervous system consists of the brain and the spinal cord. The spinal cord is an organ primarily made up of nervous tissues found within the protective bony vertebral column. This organ carries sensory and motor information between the brain and most other body parts of the body. To carry out this function, the spinal cord is the origin of many spinal nerves. And I know I give this to you later, but let me just give this to you here. Sensory equals sensation, and motor equals movement. So sensory equals sensation. So it's feel, touch. Okay. If I go and ask an athlete or a patient, okay, I'm going to do some sensation testing on you right now. I might use a tool or use my finger and draw my finger down the forearm, and I might ask, tell me if you can feel that or not from left to right side. Or tell me where you feel that, or tell me, does it feel different from right side to left side? Motor is movement. So with cervical spine testing, you did active, passive before. We're doing movement. Flexion is movement, extension movement. Those were considered motor tests. You're looking to see what type of movement they have. Like the spinal cord, or like the spinal vertebra, the spinal cord is separated by name into 4 regions. So like the uh, bones, right? You have cervical. You have the uh, cervical region of the bones of the spine. You also have it for the spinal cord: cervical, thoracic, lumbar, and sacral. So there are 4 regions. Um, the spinal cord is divided into 31 spinal segments. So there are more spinal segments in the spinal cord than there are vertebral segments. Vertebral segments, there were 24. On the base of origins of the spinal nerve. So a letter and number designation, example, L1, a letter and number designation. So L1. Okay, the same method used to identify vertebra identifies each segment. So each segment is associated with a pair of spinal ganglia located near the spinal cord. Okay, so these ganglia contain the cell bodies of sensory neurons. The axons of the neurons form the posterior roots or dorsal roots, which bring sensory information to the spinal cord. We'll get into that a little bit more later on. A pair of anterior roots or ventral roots contain the axons of the motor neurons that extend into the periphery to control somatic and visceral effectors. So I'll give you somatic and visceral. Visceral is, I'll give that to you in a little bit. I have that in front of me at the moment. On both sides, the posterior and anterior roots of each segment pass between the vertebral canal and the periphery at the intervertebral foramen between successive vertebrae. Um, for these two terms somatic Okay, so somatic, sorry, these terms are not, I don't use very often, so I just want to make sure I give that to you correctly. Um, Skeletal muscle, skeletal muscle control. So let me just make that smaller. And then visceral, to summarize it. We'll put smooth and cardiac muscle control. All right, so that's how you can kind of summarize those. All right, anybody need more time on that? Okay, let's move on to the second page, which is here. All right, so this is a bit of a review, okay? So um 7 bones called C1 to C7. Give me what the name of that is. Cervical. Okay. So you have your cervical, then you have the 12 bones in the middle, thoracic, and then you have your 5 bones on the bottom, lower lumbar. And then your 5 fused pelvic bones. Do you remember what this is called here? Can you guys see that arrow? Yeah. What is that bone called? Does anybody remember? Sacrum. Good. And then the tailbone. Close. Starts with a C. Oh, yes. I remember how to spell it off the top of my head. Cox. I think that's spelled right. Coccyx. Okay, so right, and then a part of your vertebral segment is the body transverse process, spinous process. Just a very fast review. Questions about that? All right, moving on. Okay, now a dermatome. A dermatome is a specific bilateral. Let's define that, bilateral. Bilateral is both sides. Which means, what would one side be called, do you think? What? Unilateral, good. Yes, so bilateral, both sides. Yep, unilateral equals one side. Okay, so a dermatome is a specific bilateral region of the skin surface monitored by a single pair of spinal nerves. Okay, each pair of spinal nerves supplies its own dermatome. Dermatomes are clinically important because damage or infection of a spinal nerve produces a loss of sensation in the corresponding region of the skin. Additionally, characteristic signs may appear on the skin supplied by that specific nerve. Peripheral neuropathies are regional losses of sensory and motor function, most often resulting from nerve trauma or compression of a nerve. So, for example, if your arm or leg has ever fallen asleep after you sat in a position for an extended period of time, or forced to sit in an awkward position due to space limitations, you have experienced temporarily how this would feel for a person who has experienced one symptom of a peripheral neuropathy. This location of the affected dermatomes provides clues to the location of the injuries along the spinal cord or within one or more peripheral nerve. So, for example, a sleepy foot, right? So a sleepy foot the nerve is compressed and then sends signals down that it's compressed, and then the sleepy foot occurs. And then you shake the foot out after a little bit because the nerve is no longer compressed. And then you get tingly, and then eventually the tingly goes away and it feels normal again. But the reality of it is that that particular peripheral nerve was compressed to the point to where it created issues for that particular nerve, and then it informed you that the nerve was traumatized or compressed in a way that where it not necessarily, I wouldn't say traumatized, but compressed to where it was affected. So here's a dermatome map of the upper limb. Nothing you really need to do on that. But if you look at C5, this corresponds to the fifth cervical nerve, C6 down here, C7, C8 is along here. And then you have L1, L2, L3, L4, L5. So, for example, you sit on your butt too long on the right side, and then your foot goes tingly because that particular spinal nerve or peripheral nerve, we should say, has been affected and compressed. Okay, so next page, moving on. Which should be this one. Okay, so I'm going to give you the dermatome levels, and you're just going to write them in next to the letter. Okay, so A is C2. B is C5. C is C6. D is T1. E is T2. F is T4. G is T10. H is T12. I is C7. J is S5. K is L1. L is S1. M is L5. And then we're going to add one. Okay, so N is going to go, whoops. And basically points to the big toe. And then N is L4. Okay, so each corresponding spinal nerve uh, relates to a particular area of the body that corresponds to that sensory level or skin level. All right, so that's dermatomes page. All right, so we're going to move on to the next page, which looks like this. All right, so a nerve plexus looks like this. So that's the next page here, right? So a nerve plexus is an interwoven network of nerves, or more simply, a bundle of nerves. Certain bundles will form together and create branches. From these bundles. These branches will split off and travel to certain muscles or other tissues. Once they arrive at these tissues, they will attach them and create the connection needed to make them work. Very similar to wiring in a vehicle. Every part of the vehicle can work if the wiring is properly working and connected where it should be. In the body, this wiring must be connected, not compressed, and working appropriately in order for the muscles or other associated tissues to work together. Okay, so every segment of the spinal cord is connected to a pair of spinal nerves. Each spinal nerve will lead to a variety of particular peripheral nerves. As spinal nerves leave from the spinal cord and exit into the periphery, they branch and interconnect, forming the peripheral nerves that innervate body tissues and organs. Recovery from injury to peripheral nerve may depend on the extent of injury. If a peripheral nerve is severed but not displaced, normal function may eventually return as the cut stump grows across the site of the injury away from the cell body. And then compression injuries that many times are permanent injuries with less chance of repair. All right, so we'll stop there.